that's it. Next, we will start the framing. Here we go. Our idea is to use 48 by 48 mm pine wood for the wall frames. Here you can see the 30 mm slot that has been cut into it. The other side of the cut is the same thickness as the polyurethane insulation boards that will be later installed inside of the walls. So on other side, the frames will stick about 50 mm and on it will be mounted the cladding paneling. So the idea is to get the same air gap and air movement as is used in many timber frame buildings. Behind the cladding is open space for ventilation. It's not a problem if the wooden cladding gets wet, but if it stays wet, it's a problem. So it must be able to dry, and that's why the air gap behind it is very important. So we put this here like that. In this way, the wall will be supported from the deck and no screws will be driven through the metal collar, which would allow the water seep in. So in this way, the wall structure will be stronger and sturdier than what it was before, not holding by the screws as before, but now standing on the deck. The spacing between the studs is 620 mm, because the insulation boards are 600 mm and then on both sides there will be a 10 mm gap, which will be foamed to fasten the insulation boards. Previously this was built in a way that the spacing was exactly the same as the insulation boards, but the problem with that is that the wooden structure is always a little bit moving and timber is expanding and contracting according to the humidity. So in time that creates small gaps between the studs and the insulation, which leads to air leakages, poor insulation and eventually moisture problems. But now by having this 10 mm gap on both sides of the insulation board and using a flexible foam, we can ensure that the wall structure is always very tight. There are certain challenges due to the round shapes of the boat and because nothing is in 90 degrees angle. And since the boat is on the water level is useless. We have been using the carpenter square and checked some lines to be straight by measuring them. So comparing to building on land, this is much slower and more difficult as the foundation is moving and there's no straight lines. beautiful autumn weather we have. The sun is still warming a bit and it's still relatively dry. The framing is basically done and we are now starting with the roof. There are still some temporary supports in place, but as we get more and more done, we will remove them as we go. The window openings are also starting to get their shape. We are now working on the back wall and are also inserting roof insulation in place. As with the walls, also between the roof insulation and the roofing boards, there will be an air gap to allow free air movement. As the walls have the curving shape, we also wanted that the roof has a similar bend. This is not 100% identical shape with the wall, as we wanted to extend the eaves further to avoid water splashing on the walls. But as you can see, it is quite similar. slowly but surely. And there's a nice A-gap below the roof. Here, where the front cabin roof connects to the helm wall, ventilation is important. First of all around the boat it has been done so that there is about 15 mm air gap behind the exterior cladding, which ventilates up to the roof. And here at the front, where the front wall is very short, the air gap behind the cladding continues under the bow roof, between the insulation and roof panel, and from there it continues to the helm wall. There is a 300 mm high OSB board here, with bitumen felt on top of it. And between the OSB and the wall insulation, there is the same 15 mm air gap that goes up to the window, from where it vents out below the window sill. So this is an entirely continuous airspace in which air can freely flow. If and when the water splashes here, it can easily dry out and moisture doesn't get into the structure to damage it. This same method has been used for the connection between the higher part of the helm and the low part of the cabin, ensuring a continuous ventilated air gap everywhere. Additionally, the bottom board or panel of this cladding, as well as the bottom panels of all other walls, is beveled to form a drip edge. When water runs down the exterior cladding, the drip edge prevents water from going around and behind the cladding board, and instead lets the water drip directly onto the bitumen felt below. This roof is slightly inclined, so water flows away onto the deck. This is how water drainage and ventilation has been done. We have been trying to work hard as the winter is approaching fast. Lately we have been installing cladding, windows, roof bitumen felt, and tried to make everything ready outside so that the autumn rains and the winter snow can come. Already the weather has been rainy, but still we have been progressing quite well. The windows have been installed and now we are installing window flashings. The winter can come and we can move into interior works. the perfect weather to work outside, but fortunately it's not too cold either. It has been around 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees Celsius outside. The temperature was already a few days ago below freezing, but the lake is still open for a while. Only the rain is a bit disrupting, the clothes get wet. But we are almost finished outside. Only these few flashings left and then we'll be covered from the weather. In these flashings we are using this kind of sheet metal. Although the outside facade is quite traditional Finnish style panels, we didn't want to use the traditional wooden flashings, as they would look quite heavy on this kind of narrow boat. We use these pre-made flashings, which are 0.2 mm thick white sheet metals. This will make the boat look a bit neater and slimmer, and more boat-like than the normal wooden building. It's getting quite grey and dark, so must start using the headlamp to see.
So these were the first 3 episodes. This is how far we got in the autumn. Now we left it for the winter to stand in the ice. We will wait for the spring to come. The daylight is getting a little bit longer, it's getting a bit warmer, and then we will continue on the boat restoration.